Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who thinks very deeply about the content he consumes on a yearly basis. It's Frank. How are you today?
Hello, yes. I am here with deep thoughts and an even deeper beer mug.
I like that.
How about you?
Deep Thought is the name of the computer in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? Is that Deep Thought?
I don't remember. I was actually kind of thinking of Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy from SNL.
Oh, yeah. This is unrelated.
Jack Handy.
Unrelated to this episode entirely, but I need your opinion about the SNL movie that's coming out.
I mean, I don't really have an opinion yet.
As in, like, do you want to see it? Did you watch the trailer?
I mean, yeah. No, I haven't watched the trailer, but that's because I haven't been watching trailers lately.
Right.
I remain cautiously optimistic as I usually do. No, it looks very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see it. Generally speaking, I'm really excited to see. I really like some of the casting. Well, I'm sure we'll probably talk about it whenever.
Yeah,
whenever
let's
it comes
do
out.
beer and then we'll loop back.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, it looks fun, and I look forward to seeing it.
Very good. What are you drinking tonight from that lovely yellow can that is in your hand?
Yes, I am drinking a Sip of Sunshine IPA from Lawson's Finest Liquids. This is another wonderful Vermont craft beer. Oh no, excuse me. I am corrected. No, they are from Stratford, Connecticut.
Oh,
but it is this beer had a moment like 2016 or something, I want to say, where it either that's the year that they first made it, or at least the first year it got distribution. And I remember there were like two stores in Boston that had it, and they kept selling out. And it was like people on like Boston Twitter were talking about like, oh, if you go to the one in the liquor store in the North End, they've got some right now. Go get it while it's still there. So I remember it being very prized and very like sought after for that summer. And in the years since, it's become a lot more available. So it's but in my head, it's still like, oh my God, this is a rare beer. You have to enjoy it. It's kind of everywhere now.
It's kind of like that superhero syndrome that we have, where like I have to watch it all, or or it's
yes,
gotta go away. Yeah, I have to get this now, or I might not have this beer ever again.
Yes. Yep, that's a very good analogy. Yeah.
Do you like it?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good IPA. It's got a nice sort of citrusy aroma to it, juicy tropical fruit character is how they describe it. It's very like fresh tasting because of that citrus. It's got like this, not just the bit. Here's the thing. Often I feel like citrusy IPAs, you taste the bitterness of the hops, but also the bitterness of the citrus. But I feel like I get more of the sweetness of the citrus here. So it kind of balances it out a little bit.
That sounds really good. You don't normally get. I don't associate sweet with IPA by any stretch of it. So
you get a little sweet on the front of the palate, and then the bitterness on the back of the palate, sort of at the same time.
I love that. I love that, especially for you.
Thank you.
Is that a rude thing to say? I love that for you.
No.
I was wondering if someone has like said like when it's like it's not for me, but it's for you, and I don't want to pass judgment. They say like I love that for you.
I mean I know it from Schitt's Creek,
right?
Where it's said as like, oh yes, I love that for you. Like, I'm excited for you.
It's earnest. Yeah.
Earnest. Yes. So Ernest, what are you drinking?
Ooh. I am drinking a Best Day Brewing Kölsch style non-alcoholic. I've had this on the show previously. I can't remember the last time when. Could have been last week. Could have been before then.
Sometime in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, because it's been in my fridge, but I still have yet to had the chance to go to the store, so I'm just working off of what I have. It's very tasty. I've said before that it's heavier. It doesn't really taste as much of like a Kölsch than I would want as a Kölsch. It tastes a little drier and not as light, but I do like it. It is good and thirst quenching, which is really what I'm looking for.
Ah, nice.
So those are good things. But I have a question for you, and actually might wrap into my question about the SNL movie that we were talking about previously. Is there something? What is it about getting older, or even just general tastes, where you can watch something, especially maybe something that a lot of other people are watching, that's saying, "Oh, you got to watch this. You got to watch this. It's so good." Whatever, and you tune in, and you just a little ways in, and you're like, "This is not for me." Like, and I can just tell that it's not for me. And then not necessarily a genre thing, because like I would never like say like, Frank, you got to watch Rings of Power, man. You got to watch it. You know, it's like, because I know you're not a Lord of the Rings guy. You're not a fantasy guy. Like it's like it's really none of those things are for you. And right. I'm not going and the show is of those elements. It's not, you know, it doesn't rise above them to like grab anybody else into it. It caters to the crowd that it is. But there are some shows that kind of transcend those things. Yes. But even then, you can still be kind of turned off by something. And I was curious, like, what that is for you. Is there something where you just where you just go, nah, man, I just can't. I'm not doing it. I'm not about that.
That's a really interesting question. I feel like I can think of something right off the bat. I am very turned off by a lot of like prestige TV of the last, decade or even less. There is a tendency sometimes to like have there be a mystery that's not really a mystery per se. It's not like the characters are trying to learn it. It's like the writers are just not telling you something, and they want you to piece it together from context over the course of the 8 or 10 episodes, or they do like the Rashomon thing, and it's doled out to you in little chunks across their 8 or 10 episodes. When they do a mystery like that, sort of just for its own sake, and it's just a story contrivance, basically, like it doesn't affect the story to have told me these things like in a in a more straightforward way. I find that off-putting, because it feels like a little bit of a cheat. It's like, okay, you're infusing mystery here. I mean, I'm thinking kind of like,
can you give me an example? Yeah, can you give me an example? Yeah,
The Acolyte recently.
Okay,
like, that is, and obviously I didn't get turned off to it and not watch it.
No, well, like, Star Wars is like I'm going to watch you anyway. Yeah,
exactly. I'm going to watch no matter what. But yeah, that's something that they did that in The Acolyte. I feel we're not telling us what happened on Brendock, and all of the sort of like every time Sol was like, and now I'm going to tell you what happened that day, and it gets interrupted. Like every time that happened, it's just sort of like, this is just contrived now. Like that's that. If you wanted to tell us, you could have told us. You're just sort of dangling it transparently, just dangling it.
Right. Because you could have given the audience dramatic irony, which in some ways is much more captivating.
Right.
When the audience knows something that they're privy to information that characters are not, it actually gives you a sense of ownership and authority over the character. And so you can feel for them in a way that you as opposed to like being along for the ride that is the
Yeah.
mystery. Because if the mystery isn't compelling enough, I don't care.
Right. And if I have to watch all 10 episodes to find out like the answer to a mystery that, again, is not the central question of the show or whatever, right? It's not like we're solving a mystery as part of the show. Like then, yeah, of course, only murders in the building. We're going to find out at the end of the
Sure, that's
season
right.
who the killer was, right? Of course. But that's different than this, which is like, you could have told me that and still had a story. Like the story still happens with knowing that earlier.
Just as a side comment, do you think Murders in the Building will ever go off the rails so far that like Steve Martin will be the murderer and he's like, I just wanted us to keep having fun or something like that, and that's how they get in the show? Or they all do it. There are 3 different murders and they got to solve them all, but they all did a different murder.
Wow.
Yeah. That would be so dark. What a way to twist that show.
That is so convoluted.
Yep.
Only murders in the murder.
Oh, yeah. That's a show I can't get into, actually. Speaking of shows, I
really?
can't get it. Can't do it. I watched about half the first season, and I don't know. There wasn't anything in there for me. Yeah.
Well, what's your thing, whether it's about this show or not? Like, what is your thing that turns you off?
Gratuitous violence turns me off now more than it used to, but not all the time. It's very strange. Like I watched The Boys, which arguably is all gratuitous violence, but it's actually, no, I take that back. A lot of the violence serves a purpose, and so, and because a lot of it is so over the top that you just, and you know what you're going into, walking into you're like, I kind of accept this for what it is. Even though much of it is maybe more over the top than I would tend to like. I think you could basically tell the same story with half the violence that's or weird stuff that's in it. But then I was watching House of the Dragon this season, and last season was extraordinarily violent. Game of Thrones was very violent, but this season, I'm going to spoilers for season 2 of House of the Dragon. The first episode, the kind of inciting incident for the rest of a lot of the rest of the season is that a royal member of one of the families is killed, but it's just a child, and they're like 1, 2, and you're there in the room when it happens, and you see the beheaded I'm like why why am I sitting down to think that this is entertainment?
That's sick, man.
Right. And I understand anybody that says, well, it's a part of the story, nonsense. It doesn't have to be part of the story. It just doesn't.
Someone sat down and made that up.
Right. Someone sat down and made that up. Right. George R.R. Martin sat down and made that up when he wrote the book, and then they were like, well, and we're going to make the show. But but that's nonsense. It doesn't have to be that. It never has to get to that level of real awfulness.
Right.
And so I ended up watching the rest of the season, but it took me several weeks to go back to the show to watch it. And it was basically because I truly ran out of things to watch that I felt like watching, where I was just I've got nothing. I don't know what to do. And it never stooped back down to that level, which I appreciated. If anything, it lightened considerably from that moment.
I mean, you can only go up from there, really.
Really, yeah, it's really hard to go down.
Yeah.
And imply we were talking off mic though, we're my daughter likes the Phantom Menace right now, and whatever else, and she's quite young, so I don't show her all of it or go through all the story, and I don't want her touching or coming close to Revenge of the Sith, just because right now she really likes Anakin, and I really don't want to have to explain to her that Anakin is a child killer, and even implied, and so but implied is plenty. I don't need, that's plenty awful. And so gratuitous violence is definitely, gratuitous violence is definitely there. I don't mind when there's something about swords swinging and arrows flying that doesn't affect me the same way. I'm whatever, because we don't live because we don't live that way.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's not, but some things are just kind of beyond that. I think. Yeah.
But, right. There are some things that are just like, why? Like, why are you giving me this visual? Like,
I think that's really like why. Like, there are other. Like, I'm not saying that we should all just watch Mr. Rogers, which we should because it's great.
Yeah,
and he's wonderful. But like, there is a certain point where you can just
the neighbor.
Yeah, right. Most of the time, you can pinpoint and say like, we actually don't have to put that in our movie or on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't actually have to be there. In a lot of ways, it existing in a book is different because your mind can sequence it out and block things out however you really want. And so
I don't know, man. I feel like something like to that level of like depravity is like that doesn't even need to be in the book.
No, I would agree. I would agree.
Sure.
But you don't have to you don't have any choice but to visualize it when it's in front of you on a screen.
Sure.
Like, my mind can do a lot of things to block it out. My eyes can't.
I see what you mean. Yes.
You know, so
seeing it, has a much more visceral impact than just reading it and imagining it.
Yeah, and I agree. So, but yeah, that's one of mine. I think the other one is when you're watching a history and the language is not necessarily not really of the time, but when they're trying too hard to be modern in a setting. So like Bridgerton is my example for this, where they're just like, it's just 2024, but they're wearing Regency era clothes.
Oh, interesting.
And I just like I don't mind modern language in a history. So like, trying to think of an better example. Like, I don't know, like A Knight's Tale. Actually, that's like my example from 20 something years ago, because I just watched it not too long ago. But A Knight's Tale, they use Queen music, and like they're using, they're just talking like people talk, but they're not deliberately trying to sound like it's the 2020s. And or whatever, and that I don't have a that I don't like at all. It just feels too removed from the very thing that you're telling. And there was an argument like, oh, well, this is how they would have felt talking to one another, whatever else. But like good writing, I can get that without you using the exact words of the day.
So can you give me, because I've not seen oh, wait a second. Did you say Bridgerton or did you say?
I said Bridgerton.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Then yes, I do. Yes. I don't know why for some reason my brain replaced Bridgerton with Downton Abbey, and I was like, that's not. When did they do that?
What are they doing that?
I haven't even seen much of it, but I don't think I ever saw that. Yeah, Bridgerton. Okay. Yes, I'm with you. Yeah. That does. Yeah. It bothers. It makes it hard for me. It takes me out of it. It makes it hard for me to stay like sort of focused. It does. It just takes me out of it.
Yeah, because there's a difference between like using modern language and using modern slang.
Yeah, right.
I don't need you to use all the vocabulary or even the like century appropriate slang, like whatever, decade appropriate slang, whatever. That doesn't bother me. But to be just like so completely disassociated from the very era you're telling the story in, then I just don't feel like you're even like, why bother telling it in that era?
Yeah, I agree. It's a strange like stylistic choice. I think it doesn't really. I personally don't see the appeal of that sort of idea.
I think
like it's really just the costumes, basically, right?
Really, pretty much,
yeah. The setting, and everything else is.
It kind of feels like it's saying that like history's not important, or my audience isn't smart enough to understand a different type of syntax.
Yeah, I kind of think it's more like history is only interesting as cosplay, and not as like
that's
what it actually.
That's
means,
really what it actually means, right?
Right.
And I don't.
It's like let's just whatever, like, but the clothes were cool, like
right.
So,
like, I don't have to, like, you shouldn't be watching TV or a movie to be like, well, this is what it was like.
Right. Sure.
You know, like,
yeah.
you know, because it's not. It's just like, like all stories, even ones that claim to be real history, are just telling a story. You know, most like it's a version of it. You know, and so I even like the Iliad is a great example of that, right? You know, because like the only historical evidence people really had for the Iliad or for the Trojan War was the story of the Iliad. Even the ancients.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, but didn't really happen like that. It's just a story, right? But this is as close as we can get. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of
I mean, it's as if you know, you took the Red Badge of Courage, like that's set during the Civil War, right? But like, it's not true. It's not about a real person, but it's it's about a real time in history,
right? Yeah, that's just
but if you
good old historical fiction.
Made that,
great,
like myth. It's like, okay, but it's not true, but it's about a thing that really happened, but it's not actually
it's like people get on when Napoleon came out, with Ridley Scott's Napoleon came out, there was like tons of articles about like it's not historically accurate and all of this, and he was just like, F off. Like, yeah, like who cares? Like, that's not like what is the matter with you? Like, and it's like he didn't set out to. He said he wasn't like, I'm making the most true biography of Napoleon that ever existed. He's using Napoleon to discuss the dangers of dictatorships. Right. That was the point, because that's where the world is heading politically. He uses most of his histories. He makes them at a time when like a Kingdom of Heaven, which is about the Crusades, was made as a direct commentary to the War on Terror, right? And then, you know, Gladiator was made about the freedom of people in politicking, because it came out around the time of like the recount with George Bush and Al Gore and all of that stuff. Like he's commenting on the state of the world through these things that have already happened. He's not setting out to make a history. And like that doesn't bother me at all, because I understand the assignment, I guess, but like I disagree with the assignment of something like Bridgerton.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like it's an assignment that I'd rather not do. Can I do a different one?
Can I do a different one? Can I read the Red Badge of Courage? Yeah.
You're a teacher. Can I do a different assignment?
Yeah, you sure can, buddy. Yeah. You sure can.
I'm trying to think of one more that's worth discussing. I mean, there are, you know, I've talked at length about things that bother me in lots of movies, but so there's no use in rehashing.
So I would like to go back to the SNL
sure
thing,
okay,
you know, because I forgot, because I heard they were making it, and I said it's all one night, 75 minutes, whatever is the first episode, and I was like, that sounds amazing. It sounded like, and I like some of the cast looks great and whatever. I watched the trailer and I was like, no, that's that's really not what I had this. It felt. I don't know much about the state of chaos that it was to make SNL and put it on the air, whatever. But it just feels like the trailer makes it feel like dirty and grimy, and they're all awful just for the sake of being awful. And I'm like, I know Chevy Chase isn't a saint over here, like by any stretch, you know, but like, I can't separate like what is the truth and what is not the truth just by what I watched. And so I'm like, I can't tell what their assignment is. Is it like, are you telling the story? Are you vilifying it? Are you glorifying it? Like, I just can't tell. And so, yeah,
that's a sign of like a not very good trailer, honestly. Like if you can't tell what the assignment is, and honestly, I feel like that's very often the case. A lot of trailers are just meant to sort of like pique your curiosity, you know, just show you explosions and with a very slow piano version of the theme.
Don't get down on the Snow White trailer.
Honestly, I mean, sure, but like
it was literally basically without the explosion. That's what it was. But that one actually looks great.
How about that that Last Jedi trailer of just like that long shot of Kylo going towards Rey? Was it Last Jedi or was it Rise of Skywalker? No, it's Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
That long, slow shot of him just coming at her forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't tell you anything about the movie, but it shows you a really cool like piece of like the tension in this action sequence, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. You talk about the long. You talk about when they're fighting on the Death Star. That's the bit you're talking about.
No, like they're out in the desert and he's coming at her on.
On the speed. Yeah. That is Last Jedi. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good trailer. Better than the movie, arguably.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice. You know what? Okay. Just because we mentioned the most controversial movie of the last 20 years, something that, and honestly, I don't feel this way about that movie, but something that sometimes bothers me is subverting expectations just cause.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like that movie did that. It gets accused of that, but I disagree with that accusation about that movie.
Yeah, you think it actually delved into a different way of understanding those characters, right?
Yes, I agree. I find it totally plausible that Luke 30 years later could yeah. Anyway, but I do find that phenomenon to be kind of hard to watch, because it's like if you're making it sort of controversial just for the sake of making it, like then what are you really doing? Like if you're not trying to say something with it, but you're just like, I'm going to make something that subverts your expectations for the sake of doing that, just so that feels kind of cheap. It feels like kind of a hack.
Yeah.
Like to just sort of.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It feels like you expected this, so we're just going to go slightly to the left.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not much better than being like, the killer was this new character that you didn't meet until 5 minutes before the end. Like it's not that far away from doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like, oh, well, then I couldn't have known who the killer was, so the whole thing is like meaningless.
Right, the whole mystery is completely pointless if you knew if there was a mystery character.
Yeah, exactly. So to make it, to subvert expectations just cause, while it may be, okay, yes, it achieves the end goal of I couldn't guess who the killer was, and it did surprise me, but not in a satisfying way.
How can you tell the difference between subverting your expectation and giving you a good twist? Like, where does that rest in your brain?
Yeah, you're right. That's a good question. For me, so a good twist is something where you have all the pieces, but you didn't piece it together, right? Like I See Dead People.
That's it. Yeah, that's a very good one. I had all the pieces. He told me all of them. You even went back and showed me after you told me what it was.
Right.
For you youngins out there, it's The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Yeah. That's a really good one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fight Club.
Yep, that's a good one.
Like you have the pieces, and when you look back, it all starts to make sense. But you know, if they're doing their job well, you don't piece it together until the end, and then that twist has the impact that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you. It's, to me, a good twist like that is like, oh, you bastard, you got me. Like, oh, it was all there. I couldn't see it. It was right under my nose. It's like a good mystery.
Yeah.
Like a Sherlock Holmes mystery.
Because you knew you had all the pieces. I think that,
Mm-hmm.
so like you have to know you have them for it to work all together.
Kind of, yeah.
No,
maybe you
that
don't
makes a lot
realize
of
until
sense.
that moment. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize until the moment you have all the pieces, right? But
that's okay. That's a fair play mystery. Like you,
exactly.
You know, like you have them all. It's up to you whether you solve it or not. You know,
Yes.
Even if that last piece of the puzzle doesn't connect until the very end, like you still have the chance right before the resolution. You know, this is what this is.
Knives Out is, I think, a great example of.
Yeah, well, that's a classic fair play mystery.
Classic.
Like it wants you to have all the pieces. It wants you to figure it out. Some people feel cheated by that, you know, where they're like, "Well, I knew it was him all along," or whatever. Like that's not a bad thing. It's like the part of the game of a fair play mystery is that you basically race the detective to the end. Can you solve it before they can? So if you did, that's one thing. But did you solve it, or you just thought it was them and you turned out you were right, but you didn't actually have all the evidence leading up to that point?
Yeah, that's right. That's an important distinction.
Yeah, those are like, because when I saw Knives Out, I was like, oh, it's Chris Evans, right? Like I knew it was him. Like it just, and then it turns out it was right, but I didn't have all of his reasoning. Therefore, I would never be able to. If I was playing Clue or whatever, I would never be able to actually like accuse him. I would never be able to run from room to room, being like, and then they ran to the study, because I wouldn't have had any of that. I just had a gut feeling, which is certainly not enough in a court of law. Right.
But yeah, if you have a gut feeling, but you didn't actually follow the clues to solve the mystery, then it doesn't really count. But I do still see the dissatisfaction that gives a viewer if they did, if they had that feeling or whatever, and that ends up being true. It's like, oh, like I kind of hoped you would come up with something more clever than this passing thought I had. You know what I mean? It's not a fair assessment, but it is like, it may not be fair, but it's still kind of valid, I think, to feel that way. You just shouldn't like blame the creators for not serving you a mystery that was sufficiently mind-blowing or whatever, but like but it's fair to be like, oh man, I felt that way about Shelter Island. No,
Shutter Island.
Shutter Island's a real place. Shutter Island. Shutter Island, like I guessed that was what was happening because it reminded me of the Smallville episode where that was what was happening.
Totally. Yep.
And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if that ends up being the same thing here? And then it was, and I was sort of like, oh, I kind of hope Scorsese would come up with something more interesting than that, but it's just sort of what I just sort of guessed. But that's not his fault. I just happened to see something that had a very similar premise, right?
Right.
Like,
yep.
So,
and he was adapting something else. It wasn't even like his original idea, right? So, yeah.
So, but yeah, so like that, I get the feeling. I get that it was like, it's valid to feel that way, but I can't blame anyone for that having happened to me.
Right.
Yeah.
You just love Smallville so much that it saved it ruined Shutter Island for you.
It ruins most things for me, honestly. It's just so good that I can't.
But it was on for so long and it covered so many subgenres of storytelling, like within it, that like at some point you're just going to see something that happened to be something like something else.
Exactly.
It just is.
Yeah.
Oh, they're all vampires. Knew it. Anyway, Frank, where can the people find us?
Oh, that one guy's Lex Luthor.
Oh, no.
You asked me a question, and that question was, where can people find us? And the answer to that question is very simple. beerwithgeeks.com is the best place to find us. I was just thinking, we've done over 500 episodes now. I was just thinking, I wonder how many individual beers we have had. Like, lots of repeats.
Oh my.
Like even, tonight's, I think I did Sip of Sunshine back in 2017 or whenever it was popular. You think you did
I've had this for
beer
at least
at some point,
a week or two. Mm-hmm.
Sure. But I wonder if I don't know a good way to do this, but to tally up how many it's in the hundreds. It's several. It's between two people on 500 episodes, each drinking a beer, sometimes drinking the same beer, admittedly, but like it's got to be at least 200-300, if not more.
I guess if they were all in our episode descriptions, the easiest way would be to load all the descriptions into an AI and then have it tally how many beers and how many of each beer by you and by me. Yeah. The first several dozen, I think, episodes don't have that. So, but I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to go back and add it. Anyway, I wonder how many beers we've had, but you can go back on the website and figure it out at beerwithgeeks.com. You can rate and review us in Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can subscribe there as well and get every episode. That helps us a lot.
and if you really want to help us, patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio will help us to pay the costs of doing the show. So yeah, no, those are ways to help us out, ways to find us on the internet.
Very good. Frank, always a pleasure to chat with you. So until next time, cheers.
Cheers.